So we're your host today. I'm Tuan Din. I used to be an inclusion teacher in Boston, but now I'm the community manager at Unruly. So I like to joke that I'm being paid to become your friend. And my job is to make sure that our customers feel empowered and that they are aware of what resources we have and content that is available so that they can get started and start enjoying their Splats right away. And currently I'm working on creating some customer exclusive webinars and meetups and content as well.
Awesome. And Joanne also played a big part in all of the activity packs that will be going out today. So she had a big impact on those. I'm Lauren. You guys probably already know me. I'm the marketing lead here at Unruly, and so my job is just to host these webinars for you guys, put out helpful content, and make sure that everyone feels confident implementing Splats in their virtual classrooms, in their classrooms, wherever learning is taking place.
Right.
Great.
So,
We're going to start off.
Yeah, thanks to the teachers just joining us. Just a reminder, please make sure you send your comments in the chat to all panelists and attendees. So we want to start off by just asking you guys where you're at. Are you starting school virtually, in person, or hybrid this year? Or you might not even know. It's kind of in the air.
Yes, I always put an I'm not sure yet, just in case.
Yeah.
Yesterday's webinar, we asked the same question, and we got a pretty even mix of virtual and hybrid, but pretty good mix of virtual and in person, but mostly people were starting hybrid, so it was interesting. We'll see if we get results today. So I'll leave 3 more seconds.
And you never know, like you might start in person and then you have to switch over to hybrid or virtual.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll and I'll share the results. So it looks like virtual won this time with 42%. People starting virtual, which is awesome because, I mean, it makes sense because that's what we're talking about today, how to use our activities for both virtual and hybrid learning settings. So this is great. Okay,
all right. Thank you for participating in our poll. Okay, so we just want to start off by saying if you don't have Splats, that's not a problem. Like, we're here to make sure it's not a problem. And Lauren, you said that a lot of people have been reaching out, especially about with concerns around like, well, how am I supposed to enjoy Splats or use Splats to the best of their ability if I don't have them? And so those are concerns that we're going to address today.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you do have Splats, but you're teaching virtually and they're stuck at school, or if you don't have Splats yet, these activities will work for you.
So Splats are compatible with Chromebooks and laptops, which I think most schools use. And so long as you have internet and a computer or a tablet or a laptop, then you're good to go. You can get started right away so long as you have the Chrome browser. And if you're using the physical Splats, then just make sure that your laptop has Bluetooth 4.0. So we're constantly updating to the newest versions of things, so make sure that you're updating your programs as well. And for those of you who use iPads, then you can use the most updated operating system and just make sure you have a Lightning or USB-C cord. So it doesn't take much to get started with Splats. Some things are like very complicated. It's like you're getting like a 10-page instructional with like 5 different languages. This is so simple. It's like you have your laptop, you have us, and you have internet, and you're good to go.
It's super easy. Yeah, I think Joanne, both you and I were brand new to coding when we started at Unruly, and I was. So I learned block coding through Unruly, and I can say it was very, beginner friendly.
It really is. So we have a virtual app. So for those of you who will be totally virtual, so you would be using that virtual app exclusively, but we also use the app to program the physical Splats itself. So regardless of whether or not you're in person or hybrid, you're gonna go to this app. So I'm gonna share my screen real quick and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay. See, it's one of those things, as soon as I want to do something, I don't remember how to do it. Share screen, there we go. Okay, so here is our sort of coding platform or programming platform. And you're going to see quite a bit of like block coding right here. And we're going to go over this in a little bit. So for right now, you can just sort of ignore it or just take into consideration. You'll notice that there are different colors for the blocks, and the colors coordinate to this block palette, this tray on the side. And so you can click on the tray and then it shows you all the different blocks you're going to use to create different games and different programs. And here you can decide on the number of splats you'll be using. Currently, the most you can use is 6. But so you would, if you're using the physical splats, you would choose the number of splats that you'll be using physically as well. So virtually, you can go up to 6, even if physically you only have like a few. So the virtual is nice because you can use the max number. And then over to the side is our user tray. And this is where we have some games already loaded onto the web app for you. You can see your profile. It keeps track of your stomps and the tutorials you do, different examples you go through, and it keeps track of your creations as well. And then if you go to this little folder, you can create a new project. You can save projects. You can view all your previous creations. And we also have lots of examples loaded already, such as Whack-A-Mole, which is a classroom favorite. And we have different tutorials as well, in case you need some in-the-moment help. And these over here are for, we try to make it fairly intuitive. So this is undo and redo. We also have a little trash can over here in case you need to like trash some of your blocks, which I won't right now because we're going to be using these blocks soon. You can make your sort of staging area bigger or smaller. And we try to make it as user-friendly as possible, but we're always taking in new feedback and we're always thinking of different ways to maximize your experience. And we're currently launching version 2 of our app to even sort of heighten the experience or like further enhance the experience. And that version of the app will be available to our customers soon.
Yeah, we took a lot of customer feedback into account when making that app. So it'll include things like a virtual planning screen where you can plan out where the physical spots will go, as well as a game locker so that as the educator and the teacher, you can see your students' work from wherever you are, just in one place.
All right, I'm going to stop my screen share for a second and go back to you, Lauren.
Right. That's the app. Feel free to honestly put it in your browser right now and give it a try as we go along through these activities. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, the app is completely free and you don't need to do anything in order to use it.
Yeah.
So what we do is block-based coding. And so for those of you who are unfamiliar with block-based coding, what it is, it's a very simple entry-level way of coding where you sort of visualize the code rather than think about it through like the traditional text coding. And so for kids especially, this is a really nice entry point for them because you have your different blocks that control different things, and therefore it takes away some of the burden of like trying to memorize what certain lines of code are, and you can just pull and drag and drop these blocks, and putting them together in a certain sequence will give you a certain result. And so it's a really nice way for kids to develop their foundation in computational thinking because programming is a very specific type of language, and you do have to be able to tell whatever computer or whatever you're programming, you have to tell them very specific actions. And so this is a great entryway for kids, and this is our method of teaching coding.
And if any of you have experience with Scratch or code.org, this is essentially what it is. Right.
Yeah, and we also have lots of different activity packs. So different activities for all different types of learners and all different types of needs. So again, going back to our relationship with the community and our customer base, we're always taking in their feedback and we're always sort of reacting with them and troubleshooting with them. And so we're creating content as the demand for that content grows. So when the pandemic first happened, we had a lot of teachers reach out to us and say, like, I'm going fully remote, what do I do? And so we devoted all of our energy to creating activities for students to work on by themselves at home where they didn't need Splats at all. And we also worked on activities so that like some classroom favorites too. We like reworked them so that classrooms could continue playing their favorite games even though they were apart. And then as like the months went on, teachers were letting us know like we're having a hard time with our community, we're having a hard time with student engagement, and a lot of requests for social emotional learning was brought up. And so we developed a social emotional learning pack where the intention is to focus on community building rather than coding, even though that's still definitely something that you can do with your kids. But this particular activity pack, it's very low threshold games where everyone can enjoy it regardless of like ability, and the code comes already made for you, and so you can just load it up and then start playing together right away. um, and we also have activities for kids who love to like get moving. We have activities for kids who love to solve puzzles. We have activities for kids who are artistic and they just want to like have different ways of expressing themselves. And so we're constantly coming up with new activities and materials so that everyone gets to enjoy Splats in their own way.
Yeah, Joanna worked in the art challenge into the fitness pack, you were telling me.
Yeah, so we created a fitness pack because a lot of teachers were also telling us like, well, we're in front of our computers all day now. And gym teachers were telling us too, like, I don't know how to get my kids moving when we're all apart. And so we created an activity pack specifically for fitness and getting moving and having fun and being silly. And I just sort of snuck in an art activity. So I was always that kid who like I would participate in gym, but I didn't love gym, and so I wanted to like tie in some other practices as well. And you have many code and play options. So like we said, if you have very independent students, we have activities for them to work on independently. And since the web app is available to anyone and anywhere, so long as you have an internet connection and a device, so students are able to code independently. They're able to connect with their friends and code collaboratively. You can do it before school and then bring it together as a class. You can code together as a class. And so this allows for a lot of flexibility. You can have synchronous play or asynchronous play. You can do it at home, you can do it at school, you can do it both. So this really allows you to be flexible in how you utilize the Splats.
Yeah, and the activities that we're going over today were designed to be student facing, but you can also do them, as Joanna was saying, synchronously as a class, or if your students are independent, then you can send them sort of away with the activity pack and a little bit of a demo. But we've had teachers use our activity packs where they record a video of themselves explaining it, and then it gives the students asynchronous time to explore it, and then they kind of come together as a full class to talk about it.
We even, we have a teacher who, she hasn't even received her physical Splats yet, but she was so excited, she started letting kids know about the web app and started telling them about it. And over the summer, one of her students got really into the musical Splats because we have a music version of our activities as well. And this student independently programmed Imagine Dragons using the musical Splats. And so it's really amazing how quickly students will pick up on this because like they are born in this age in which like they've had devices in front of them their whole lives. And so like not only do we try to make this very intuitive for them, but they themselves are also very intuitive when it comes to devices. And so it's amazing what students will do independently. And for students who have more trouble working independently, we also have many video tutorials. We have step-by-step video tutorials. We have code images, and we have step-by-step lessons as well. So yeah, we have lots of student-facing activities where students can work independently if they want to, but the mission of Splats is to make sure that it's inclusive and everyone's having fun and we're being collaborative and we're being silly. And so even though these are independent student-facing activities, they can easily be translated into collaborative play. And we highly encourage sharing and playing together and mistake making together in order to solve problems together. So we like to have fun and we want our kids to have fun. We want your kids to have fun.
Absolutely. It's all about having fun while learning. Did you learn something and did you have fun?
Yes, exactly. Those are the two questions we always ask ourselves when we're creating content. So like Lauren said, like I didn't learn block coding until I started working for Unruly. Like before I used to work in Boston Public Schools as like a third grade teacher and I didn't know anything about coding. And so it really is easy to pick up Splats. It does take time and it does take like your own exploration if you're unfamiliar with coding and block-based coding, but it is very doable.
Another thing to keep in mind, and we talked about this at some of our other webinars too, but number one rule is you don't need to have all the answers, and it's okay not to have all the answers and to figure things out with your students along the way too. And that's what we're all about at Unruly, is having fun, figuring things out, failing and celebrating, mistakes
Yeah.
and bugs.
Yeah.
And
I think Bob Ross called them like happy accidents or
yeah,
something.
I like that.
Yeah, we definitely encourage happy mistakes.
And our activities also have multiple steps to them. And so usually how it's structured is that they build up in difficulty. So if you start with the first activity, the second activity will build, on top of the first one and so forth. So there's multiple activities in all of our activity packs, which can make for a lot of fun.
Yeah, and these are definitely not one and done activities either. Like we highly encourage going back to them. So I'm going to show you an example of a fitness activity. So I'm going to share my screen again. If you remember when I shared my screen the first time, we had quite a bit of code to the side. So I'm going to show you what that looks like when we run it. So this is from our fitness activity pack, which I will preview for you here. This pack comes with several different activities and it's available in a PDF format, but we also have video tutorials for each activity as well. And the code that we're going to look at right now is for part of a fitness routine. So we have, in order to teach students how to create a timer and a stopwatch, we thought it'd be really fun to incorporate that into the movement. And so we decided to create different exercises, very like easy to do exercises that don't involve equipment that any student can do in a relatively small space. And so we have those exercises that students can choose from, and then we walk them through building individual pieces of code. And so this looks like a lot, but this is actually 3 parts of a lesson. And so in one part, you're only building one chunk. In another part, you're adding on to that chunk. And then in the end, in part 3, you'll build a fitness machine. And so what we have here is we have, we need 3 splats because we have splat 1, 2, and 3. And when you press splat 1, that's when a stopwatch begins. And so the intention was for kids to see how many of a certain exercise they can do in 30 seconds or less. And also to see how long it takes, how long would it take me to run from my computer to the mailbox. They can like time themselves to see how long it takes them to do that. And then they can compare, they can share their routines as well. And so this looks like a lot, but again, keep in mind that we scaffold our lessons. And so students are building this code as they go. So when you press splat 1, can you guys hear? Lauren, were you able to hear that was? So pressing splat 1, we programmed our splats to light up different colors. So they're fading from random colors every second. And then you can see that the stopwatch has begun. And then when splat 2 is pressed, kids get a little cheer. And then this splat was created so that students could then record the number of, let's say if they were doing crunches, they would be able to record the number of crunches that they did. So this splat was created just so that they had like a little delay in between exercises so they can record. And then splat 3 is where you can see how long it takes you to do something. And so for this, we create a countdown function. And when splat 3 is pressed,
10, 9, 8, 7, 10, 9.
I'm gonna stop that. we don't need to do the whole thing. But just so you know, like the functions are a way to like package the code so that you can create a countdown function and then save it, and then you can reuse it again for other bits of code.
Yeah.
So
the left part is not actually part of the game. It's the function that we're using under the when Splat 3 is pressed. So we can actually even minimize that if we wanted to take it off the screen, or to show the students that that's just the package that we set aside so that we can make the code a little bit more clean.
Yeah, and we have an intro to coding pack as well that we recommend to all new block coders so that they can become familiar with the vocabulary and what certain blocks do as well. So I'm going to send it back to you, Lauren.
All right. Oh, 1 second. Let's try that again. I don't even know what that was. I'm discovering new things every day about Zoom.
I just real quick, I saw in the Q&A someone mentioning that this feels like very above their grade level. And so we have had kids as young as kindergartners use the Splats in gym. And so they might not be coding, but they're becoming familiar with the side of it. They're becoming familiar with some of the blocks and the colors, and they're becoming familiar with the fact that I see this bit of code, and they're connecting it to the fact that then I see the Splat doing this thing that either my teacher told the Splat to do, or like I worked in a group and we figured out how to like make something light up. So even if they're not coding like very like sophisticated code, they're becoming familiar with it. They're becoming familiar with the idea that like machines do things because we tell them to. And I'm really excited about Splats. Just like I visited a gym, a PE teacher in Bronx, and he had his kindergartner so excited about the Splats. He just like took one out, and then all the kids cheered, and then because they had their favorite games, they're like, we're gonna do race and place now. And so even if they're not coding, they're becoming familiar with it. They're seeing it, and that's something they can look forward to as they get older.
Absolutely. And we've seen, we have a couple grade 1 and grade 2 classes that that are coding and that start out with the tutorial. So if you or your class are brand new to block coding, I definitely recommend the tutorials that are built into the app, and then starting with some of the pre-built games and modifying it. So if you're starting with whack-a-mole, you can show them, oh, did you know that you can change the colors? Did you know that you can change the delay? And so they're starting to, you know, make things their own a little bit while the code is actually still there. So they're not necessarily building it from scratch. Awesome. So this is just the recorded.
Oh, yeah. Oh, really help their ELL students as well, even if they don't necessarily know what the word function means, they're figuring out what it means. So yeah, this is part of the fitness activity pack. So this was a way for kids to just record their progress. So they don't have to do every day of the week, but we wanted to give them that option, and we wanted to give them the option to do several movements a day if they wanted to as well. All right, so now we're gonna play a game. So a lot of classroom favorite is Would You Rather? And so I remember with my students, they loved coming up with the silliest possible questions, and then they would run to one side of the room or the other to cast their vote. And so we took that game and we wanted to think about how can we make it work remotely. So we also wanted to sort of like make it very collaborative. And so this is part of our SEL activity. Engage each other to show how they can cause. And so the sort of what I keep wanting to say spicy, but it's like not spicy. But we wanted to spice up the game a little bit by having students have to agree on one would you rather question. And so you would ideally have two teams. And then both teams have to work together to come up with one would you rather question, and they all have to agree to the question. And then you have someone report back to the teacher, and whoever reports back to the teacher first, then the whole class then has to cast a vote on that would you rather question. And so kids are they're being encouraged to be silly, but they're also being encouraged to like work together and work collaboratively, because if you want your question to be the question asked, you have to put aside disagreements, or you have to learn how to disagree or respectfully disagree in order to choose something that you all can like be happy with. So we played this during one of our boot camp webinars, and we had teachers and participants type in some would you rather questions. So if you have one right at the top of your head right now, please write us in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to start playing, and then Lauren and I are just going to come up with one.
It's going to be great. So this is basically how you would run, an example of how you might run this activity in a virtual class. And I'm going to switch over to my coding screen soon, but we had one question come in of from the STEM and fitness activity pack. We have seen classes play it so that they code together, especially for the younger classes, on the screen virtually. So the teacher is leading the coding, and then the students can actually do the physical activities together on Zoom as a class. And we actually did that, the STEM and fitness activity, as a team at Unruly. And there's a really fun found art challenge as well that's included in that pack that students can play virtually, where, you know, maybe the teacher has the code on the screen and it'll flash a color, and then the student has 10 seconds to go run around their house to find something that's that color. And then they build different items, random items from their house of certain colors to make an art sculpture. So these activities are all meant to be, you know, taught on Zoom, or they could be taught in person, or some combination of both when you're coding while you're virtual, and then maybe you get to play distanced while you're at school, if you have any at school time. Okay.
And we think a lot about inclusion and making sure that whatever we're asking students to do, we want to make sure it's something that they can find in their house, or something, a resource that they can get from their school. So for the art activity, we chose colors because everyone's going to have something in their house that's blue. Everyone's going to have something that's red. And for the exercises, there's no equipment. And so anything we're asking students to do, we're really trying to keep in mind all learners.
Actually, I'm just going to show you how I loaded.
So we have one would you rather question. So would you rather have smelly feet or body odor?
That's a good one. Before we
oh
get
no, my screen has frozen. So Lauren, hopefully you can hear me. We've been having some internet connection issues here in my part of New York, because I think a power went out somewhere.
No problem. I hope you can hear, I can hear you. I'm just gonna show everyone how I got this on my screen, because this is from our SEL activity pack, which, as Tuan mentioned, all of the code is available for download. So you don't actually have to build anything yourself if you don't want to. So I'm gonna delete all this, and I'm going to go into here, and I'm going to create a project. I'm gonna import my project. And this will allow me to download a TXT file. And so in the activity pack, when you click on the code, it will give you that TXT file. And then all you have to do is click import project, select the TXT, and you're good to go. So here it is. I also saved it, so it's saved in my folder. All right. So, Joanne, you still with us?
Yes, sorry. I switched on to a hotspot.
Okay, cool. So we only have one would you rather so far. Please, guys, don't be shy. This is also a really fun one for kids to come up with. My friend and I were kind of coming up with would you rathers, even just for fun. And then she brought up like a positive one, like, oh, would you rather like live in a castle or have superpowers? And I was like, ooh, that's a really tough one. I like the positive ones, because usually I always think of the negative ones, like what would I like, what I most would like the least, basically.
Yeah, I remember one from my student. It's like, would you rather have a lifetime supply of Takis or a lifetime supply of like Cheetos? So yeah.
All right, we got some more coming in. This is awesome. So let's go with, and I'm really sorry if I butcher the pronunciation of your name. Gogger? Gogger. Gogger Cobb School. Actually, it's not a person's name, it's a school name, so I don't feel too bad. All right, so we're gonna go with his, which is, would you rather have smelly feet or body odor? So I'm assuming that if you have body odor, then your feet smell like roses or like lavender or something really nice. And
No,
then
your feet just smell amazing.
or your feet smell really bad, and then the rest of your body smells like.
Amazing.
All right, so let's say that A is going to be smelly feet, and B is going to be body odor. So if we look in the code here, we have a couple ways to start a program, and I always say there's 2 ways to start a program, with the when program starts block or when splat pressed. And so when we start the program, it's gonna set us up. Oops, it's a little slow. And that means that splats 1, we have it coded so that splat 1 is A and splat 3 is B. And then it's going to do something fun in the code where it basically hides all of the votes until you press splat 5, which then reveals what the winner is. So everyone, if you can write in the chat, what would you rather? A, have smelly feet, or B, have body odor? So write A or B in the chat, and then I'm going to tally them up. And then live, I'm going to be pressing on either splat 1 on the screen here or splat 3 to tally up the votes. All right. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 for A. All right, let's get some more votes coming in. I know there's more than 8 of you on the line. There's lots. So we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 1 vote for B. Thank you, Bugger Cop School. Any other votes for A or B? I personally, I'm going to say A. And I'd rather have smelly feet.
I'm
I
gonna
think
say A.
smelly, yeah. I'm a runner, so I always have smelly feet. All right, we got some votes for B.
And the reason why we have, I don't know if you Lauren, I don't know if you went over why we have spots 2 and 4. It's for overspill in case you have a large class and you're doing a large amount of votes. And so if we filled up splat 1 because they only have so many light sensors on each splat, then the overspill votes would then light up splat 2.
Thank you for reminding me of that. Yes, so you'll notice that it's a little bit delayed, but every time I press either splat 1 or splat 3, the one LED, extra LED lights up and it makes a sound. And so I'm going to cheat here and I'm going to press it a bunch of times so that you can actually see. Now we've run out of space in splat 1, like Tuan was saying, we've gone over into splat 2. And the same thing happened with splat 3 if we went over. So it looks like A is going to be the one, but we'll see. All right, is everyone ready? We're going to press splat 5, and splat 5 is going to show us the tally. Nice. So 21 for smelly feet and 10 for body odor. Okay, let's go back up here. Ooh, there's lots of other great ones.
I really like that question you asked me the other day about MORSE or knowing when you're going to die, which I know is very dark for a webinar.
Yeah, so this was one actually, my friend and I were coming up with ideas. He said, would you rather go to Mars tomorrow or know when you're going to die? So it could be like 30 years from now, you know, which date you're going to, you know, no longer be with us on the earth, or you're leaving tomorrow, leaving all your family and going to Mars to for an expedition. Yeah. And it was really interesting because it was a pretty split group. I said I would rather go to Mars, and my husband was like, no, I would rather know when I'm going to die.
Yeah, because some people want to know, well, if I'm invincible for the next 20 years, I'm just going to go nuts. And then some people really want to explore the unknown in Mars. And so I just thought that was a really interesting question. A little too dark for elementary school.
Yeah, this is a fun one. Would you rather, Ooh, I like this one. Would you rather visit an international space station or stay in an underwater hotel? That's a great one.
Oh, that's a really good one.
So let's say A is International Space Station and B is underwater hotel. Great suggestion, Kathy. And then we're going to move on after this. So let's run again. It hopefully should reset. Yep, it does. Great. So A, space station, and B, underwater hotel. All right, let's keep it coming. I think Kathy said A. Okay, and Rex says A. Sandra says A. Lisa B. Oops. Mike A. How about you, Tuan? I think underwater sounds really cool. I've always wanted to be able to breathe underwater.
I want to be in a space station.
I know, it's very ironic. I would rather like go explore Mars, but I'm also really intrigued by underwater. So I can't make up my mind.
The ocean is lawless. Anything goes.
Okay, keep it coming, guys. If anyone has any questions about how this works or how you would potentially lead this in a class, I am counting it manually. We had some questions about that. So yes, you would have to kind of get your students to write in the chat, or even if you had your students break into groups and then one person from the group, you know, brought the tally. That's another way to do it. All right, so. Looks like International Space Station wins. We're gonna go back here. That was fun. Thanks for leading, Tuan.
Oh, and also it looks like quite a bit of code, but that's because this is part of the SEL activity pack where the code is already given to you. So you just upload it and then you get started right away, and the focus is more on community building. But if you did want to challenge your students to build the code, that is something that you can do either piecemeal or do it together as a group. We supply the code image as well, and so feel free to do whatever you want. And we do have a lot of our teachers, they sort of interpret our lessons the way they want to, and they adapt it for their kids. So I've seen it done through stations. I've seen it done like not focusing on the whole code at all and just pieces.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to move on to the third virtual activity pack example, which is our musical splats. So we made reference to this a little bit earlier, but this was, I believe, our first virtual activity pack. And what's really fun about it is I think it's the first time that we really explored music in MIDI. And so MIDI is this system where each musical note is assigned a number, and the number is in the Splats app. So you can actually create music through Splats and through our virtual coding screen. And this is sort of what the keyboard looks like. And we also have this in the activity pack. And again, it's all broken down into a step-by-step. So the first activity really goes through how to make a drum machine. So it's before you get into the MIDI, you can actually create different sounds and drum sounds with the Splats app. And then in the second following activities, you start to get into the MIDI system where they can start to build songs like Twinkle Twinkle or build their own songs, which is really fun. So this is sort of what it looks like. So here's sort of the piano. This is the MIDI activity. So play note 60. You know, you have to have a delay, which is a great way to teach students that like they can play around with what does it sound like if there's no delay, and then what if I put in a delay and maybe that's not enough, and they can play with the different amounts of delay. This is what it looks like. And I think I have an example here. So we have a Twinkle Twinkle activity in the musical Splats pack. And I'm gonna play a video that was actually a submission. So we had this fun challenge where we said, okay, if your students submit their musical challenges to us, we will have Crash the Unruly Gorilla, which is literally our coworker in a gorilla suit, dance to their songs. So this was a Twinkle Twinkle song. This is not one of the an original Unruly song, but I thought it was really well done. So I want to share with you all. This is a student coded submission, just to be clear. That student coded this whole thing. And that that was done on an iPad. You can actually see it was a screen recording, and that's how they shared it. So this whole activity was done virtually, where the instructor recorded himself on video, going through the activity pack and talking about MIDI and how you can create different notes. So this pack is very, very exploratory. The students did their songs, I believe, independently, virtually, and then sent him a screen share recording. But if you are using our new app on app 2.0, they wouldn't need to do that. They could just save it in the app, and then you would be able to go in and see it, which is really exciting.
And one of our music teachers, she's unable to teach singing right now because students, even with the mask on, it's still not safe to like sing all together. And so she's been using the music components of the Splats in order to let students play music together.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll have more to come from her. She also sent me a few videos for students playing them. And our next activity pack is Morse code. So this one is awesome, actually. I mean, who doesn't love like secret messages and sending them to your friends? So we're like, yeah, of course we have to do Morse code for virtual. So this is, Morse code is, of course, a series of dots and dashes that relates to letters in the alphabet. So you can actually create messages using it. And in our Morse code activity pack, we go into a little bit of the history as well, which is fun. But this is sort of the basis for the entire pack is, can you create sounds or flashes of lights that indicate the Morse code alphabet, which you definitely can. And the great thing about this activity pack is, again, it's very gradual. It starts off super simple. So the first step is, how do you create dots and dashes in the virtual Splats app? And you do that. We chose to do it. You could do it with sounds, but we chose to do it with colors in this example. And so we had it the color green, and then you can create a dot. You can see here by the delay of 0.5 seconds, and then the dash is 1.5 seconds. And so you can see here, the splat will light green, it'll delay 0.5 seconds, and then it'll turn off, and then it'll delay before the next one. So you can see a very, very clear, that was a dot or that was a dash. But this gets really long, and I'll show you in the next slide. If you wanted to do the most simple SOS message, 3 dots, 3 dashes, it gets really long. And so an easy way to be able to package your code is through these awesome things called functions. And so the next step in the activity pack is to create a function for dots and dashes. And so you'll see, I kind of did a little conversion there on the right-hand side. This is what it looks like packaged as a function. So all you did was take your dot and create a function for it, and take your dash and plug it into a function. And then the great thing about that is then you no longer have to repeat those dots and dashes in their entirety, but you can just plug in that dot and that dash. So I'll show you on the next slide here. That's on the left-hand side, that's without functions, super duper long. And then on the right side here, you can see short, dot, 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 delay, long, dash, dash, dash. So it's packaged, it's literally the same code, but it's just packaged with functions to make it a lot easier to read and a lot just easier to work with. And if anyone has any questions on functions and things like that, we have an awesome webinar, Splats 102, shameless plug, for another webinar we did that goes specifically into controls and functions and variables. And then the next step, exactly, so this is the short, is to create a function within a function. We're getting super meta. We're saying, okay, even with the functions of the dots and the dashes, it's gonna get long. So the next step is to make letters in the alphabet with the dots and dashes so that you can just plug in the letters and actually create the message really simply. And so then you can see here that we've created the S by short, 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 delay, and the dash, long, 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 delay. And then you can see where I'm going. The students can create their own messages with their code. And the last activity is super fun. It's kind of like a Mad Lib style crack the code activity. So definitely encourage you to check that one out because that's very rewarding at the end to get the crack the code that Crash sends you in the activity pack. He is unruly, and there he is. That's the Crash that I was referring to, who also dances to the musical Splats activity. So Crash plays a very big part in most of our activities that we make here at Unruly now. What happens when you put us all at home and we have to work by ourselves?
Yeah, underneath that suit is a grown adult man.
So this is a really fun activity. I'd say it's great for middle schoolers as well, because it does have that the functions in there, which can get a bit more complex. But this is a great way to introduce functions. I think it was the first time that I was really like, oh, okay, I get functions now, when we came out with this activity pack. All right, so somebody wrote in, yeah, you have to be 14 feet apart in order to do any singing. So I think that's every district seems to have different rules, but the great thing about Splats is that they are movable and you can stomp on them. You don't have to touch them with your hands. So, you know, if you do have some sort of hybrid setting or you are in person at any time, you can still play with Splats. So we're gonna show you how.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be afraid to stomp on them either if you get them in person. They're like made to endure. So we came up with sort of a social distance like circle. So some of our activities involve being somewhat close to each other because you're playing collaboratively. And so we did the math and we figured that so long as you are like in this formation, in this distance apart, then you should be okay by most CDC standards.
Awesome. All the math.
Yeah. And we have lots of classroom favorites like Four Corners, and we try to take those classroom favorites and we try to turn them into games that you can play remotely and also through Splats. And so we won't be going through this game today, but we wanted to show you an example of some of the activities that we do have.
Yeah, and this is a great one that can be modified, of course, for social distance. So Tuan actually went through, we have activity packs if you're a customer that are specifically just for customers, and they have modifications that Tuan made for social distance. So this is sort of what they look like for hybrid learning.
Yeah, and they're definitely just suggestions. So again, like we unfortunately are not in the classroom with you, and so we don't know your kids as well as you do. Like, you know them the best and you know what they need, and so we try to come up with as many resources and suggestions so that you can feel successful and still play together as a community. So yeah, we went back through some of our activity packs when everything became remote, and we started making adjustments and adaptations so that they could still be enjoyed.
All right, so I put this slide on here as a what's next for those of you who are brand new to block coding or brand new to Splats. All of these activities are available on our website. If you go under our top navigation, under Learn More, we have a lesson plan section. All of our lesson plans, or most of our lesson plans, are available there, with the exception of our activity packs that are just for customers. But we have a ton of content there that's available for free for you to download and try out with your students. I hope, you know, my hope would be that you get to go, you know, on Zoom with your kids and try these out tomorrow or whenever you're teaching next. You know, it's super easy to pick up. You don't have to have all the answers, and hopefully you find them really fun. So, and if you do want to get into the coding part, I definitely recommend starting out with, I'll show you again, the tutorial section here. Start with the first one. You can load the tutorial. It's super easy. You could even get your students to do this while remote. And so it's like, you know, if they come to the first class and they've watched the first tutorial, then you can kind of play around with it live. And we also have a number of really great examples, all sort of organized into how many Splats you have. And so, you know, whether or not you have physical Splats or not, some of these are appropriate for physical Splats, and some of them are great for virtual. So even things like whack-a-mole, you can just load this example. Super easy. We've got 10 moles. We've got 3 Splats, so we'll change it to 3. And just like that, I'm playing a game. And I didn't have to do any coding.
And the sounds are so fun.
The sounds are so fun. Awesome. So we've got about 6 minutes for questions. I wanted to sort of open it up to everybody here. Let us know, what do you think? Do you have any questions, concerns, fears, excitements? What do you like? What are you excited for? I saw somebody said that they liked the activity pack. I think that was when I was talking about the Morse code one. That's one of my favorite activities for sure. But yeah, write us in the chat if you have any questions. We'd love to hear from you. Jan asks, can the splats be cleaned and how do you clean them? Good question. So we follow the CDC guidelines. So if you have a disinfectant, I think it's 70 or 75% alcohol, all you have to do is spray them and wipe them, and that's it. They're super easy to clean. There's no divots in them. Actually, I have one here I can show you.
Yeah, you can just treat them like a table surface.
Exactly. So this is it. You can spray it directly. You can spray a cloth and then spray it. You know, they've got little feet on the bottom as well, but you don't need to sanitize those because that's just going to be on the floor anyways, or on the desk. But this is what it looks like in real life. All right, and question from Sandy, what URL do I give my students on Chromebooks? So that's going to be the app. I'll type it in the chat. I'm gonna put my Splat over here. So it's going to be app.unruly-studios.com. That's the one app that's open right now, and we do not collect student information, so they can create a profile on their device. And with the old version of our app, the one that I just showed you today, you know, they would need to access the same device to access their profile. So that's all saved in the browser.
Oh, Lauren, that's the link for the new app.
Nope, that's the old app.
Oh, it is? It is? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so we also have an iPad app. So if you're going to be using iPads with your students, all you have to do is go to the App Store and search Unruly Splats, and then the app is going to come up. And the fun thing about the iPads is that if you have the app already installed, you actually don't need to rely on internet access at all. Awesome. And I had a couple questions before the webinar on, you know, can I use this with my 3 to 5 year olds, or I'm teaching in a K or a pre-K class? I saw a couple people in the introduction say they're, you know, pre-K teachers or K teachers. That's awesome. So what we would tell you is that you can still play the games with your students. They're gonna love it. Like Tuan told the story about where she went to see a PE teacher in the Bronx, and the kindergarten students were loving it. They're just not going to be doing the active coding as much. So it's going to require a bit more teacher intervention, where, you know, you're going to be doing the coding and maybe you'll show them on the screen and then they can do the playing. So they're just getting that introduction to coding, but not necessarily coding it themselves. Since the blocks do have text on them, they do need to be able to read to start that block coding. Awesome. If you place an order, how soon will you get them? So I believe our standard shipping time, there's no delays. So it should be, you know, 7 to 10 days, I think, is our standard right now. Thankfully, we do have lots in stock. Thanks for the question, Rex. And I'm seeing a question here. Oh, awesome.
And you can get started coding right away, even if you don't have the physical Splats yet.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely. Awesome. And all of our, hopefully all of you know, all of our memberships come with ongoing coaching. And so we really consider ourselves your partners. We want to see you successful. We don't want to see, you know, Splats going unused, or, you know, that you're frustrated and you can't figure it out. Like, we are there for you no matter what. We'll hop on a call with you. We will, you know, we have a ton of awesome beginners content. We do these webinars all the time. So yeah, we really consider ourselves your partners in this, and we want to make sure that we do everything possible to make you successful. So that's definitely part of our offerings here. We're also a community here at Unruly, so we're here to support you. That's our #1 priority. Awesome. Okay. If there's no other questions, then I think we usually I end like 5 minutes late, so we timed this perfectly, Tuan. usually I'm a chatty Cathy, but I think that's everything that I wanted to share with everyone tonight. I hope that this was helpful. I'll show a real quick tour of how to access our activities, if that would be helpful.
One person did ask if you will be getting a presentation by email, so this presentation, so you will be receiving it via email after the webinar.
Yes, we definitely send webinar recordings. All right, so I'll show you very quickly here to access all of our activities and actually all of our webinars as well. Most of them we put up on the site. So if you go to lesson plans here, you'll see all of our social emotional pack, all of our virtual lessons are uploaded on here. Our STEM and fitness pack, our MORSE code pack. We have an activity pack for 2 splats for our grant winners that won 2 splats. And then we have our splatting without splats guides. Say that 10 times really quickly. And so we have an iPad one and we have a Chrome guide. And they're very, very similar. There's just a couple differences between the apps on iOS and on Chrome. So something to keep in mind. And yeah, our intro to block coding is also a great activity pack that I definitely encourage you to check out. And we also have all of our webinars here as well listed on the site. Hey, Joanne, there, it's you in the SEL pack. All right. So that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Really, really appreciate it. And if you have any questions for me, but you can't think of anything right now, I'm going to leave my email in the chat. You can reach out to me directly and ask me any question you have for later. But I hope you all enjoyed today's presentation. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us. It was a lot of fun. I hope you had fun too, and we'll see you at the next one.